Jones Center, for the kind invitation. So my name is Maria Augusta Arruda. I'm from the University of Nottingham. And I thought it was very funny because today is all about the women of the future. And you've got this old woman talking to you. So I decided to put as a subtitle of the talk, A Blast from the Past. So I'm going to share a bit of my life and my life in science. I never thought, I don't remember a moment in my life that I was not thinking about science, and you're going to understand a little bit better why. Here we go. So let's start with an icebreaker. And the question is, are you a scientist? So if you think you're a scientist, I want you to raise your hands. Help me, because I'm going to count myself. So please, hold on. Scientists in the room? More scientists? Yeah? More scientists? No? No scientists? No more? Okay. Now it's time to do the countdown. You're feeling like putting your hand up. You? No? The one by your side. I thought that she was about to raise your hand now. Okay, so we've got in the room, with conviction, 1, 2, 3, 4 scientists. So these are the people that believe that they are scientists. But I've got something to reveal. We are all scientists. All of us, everyone here in this room, we are all scientists. And it's scientifically proven. So here we've got this old lady that the teachers in the room might know who she is. Do you know who she is? The name is there anyway. Her name is Maria Montessori. So she was a physician, and during, I think, one of the wars in Italy, she decided to devote herself to educate the children, particularly children living in very impoverished areas. And she came with a method that is known today as the Montessori method. And she used to say that every person has got a scientist within. Particularly children have got a scientist within. And that scientist sometimes is shackled, put in a prison inside ourselves, or even killed. But we are all born with a scientist, or a thriving scientist. Some of us decide to take these scientists to be a professional scientist, and I think it's the case of everyone that raised their hands. Some of us have these scientists and express their creativity in other forms, as artists, as mums, as bricklayers, but the scientist is there. I could tell you about my life, but it's quite boring. So I'm going to try to share with you some of the parts that are more interesting, I think. So I am from this place, Brazil. Do people know where Brazil is? Where? South America, exactly. And what crosses your mind when you think about Brazil? The Amazon forest. What else? I like you. Because that's where I'm from. So Rio de Janeiro is this beautiful place here. That's where I was born. But when we talk about Brazil, particularly for older people, it's about football. It's about carnival. So music, but I decided that I'm going to change this slide and put a big photo of the Amazon forest, because it's really epic. But Brazil has got a bit of a complicated history. So just like every place in America, in the Americas, Brazil was colonized. Do you know who colonized Brazil by any chance? No? Bit of history with science. Europeans, yes. You're absolutely right. Can you inch a little bit? No, but they are everywhere. So you're not too far away. Yes? France tried to invade Brazil a few times, but they were not the original ones. Very close, getting closer. Portugal. So the Portuguese, these are these guys here arriving and being met by the jolly, or not so jolly, native Brazilians. And I'm sure that you know everything that happened, just like in other parts of America. They decimated all the native people. They imported labor under the form of enslaved people that came all the way from Africa under horrible conditions to do forced labor in Brazil. So if you look at me, I'm a black Brazilian, meaning that I'm the descendant of those people that were taken to Brazil to work. And I can reassure you from the histories of my great-grandmas and great-grandfathers that I had the chance to meet, I was not taken there with people saying, oh, don't you worry, in 4 or 5 centuries, your descendants are going to become scientists. So if people think about Brazil, sometimes it's just like the photos are from Scandinavia, because you don't only see white people, sometimes blonde people. That is not really. Over 56% of the Brazil are black people like myself. And he had 2 symbols of resistance of the enslaved people against slavery. So Brazil is the largest black country outside Africa. And that's something that people don't talk about. And so over 56% of the population, or over 100 million people, are black or black mixed. But they are less than 70% of the academics, less than 5% of academics devoted to science, technology, engineering, and maths. And there are some other more upsetting statistics there. So just like when we think about women in science, oppression comes in many shapes and forms, just like people. But when I think of Brazil, I think of my family. And it's much better to think about them, because they are wonderful people that gave me a wonderful childhood where I could nurture the scientist inside me that I was talking about. And I was about to wreck my mom's house, because everything for me was an experiment. A bottle of shampoo, a bottle of perfume, cooking oil, you name it. It would become an experiment and create chaos in the house. So my family gave me many, many of these sets of, it was like the young scientist, something like that. And I used it, and then they need to buy more, because I was very quick in using all the reagents that came with it. But I'm sure that if I were, young people today, a young person today, I would definitely dab with VR. I couldn't remember the name in the morning. And use, all these cool interfaces that we can use to understand science. And I was even luckier, because in Brazil, there is something called the technical high schools. So when I was around your age, when I was 14, that's when I went to the technical high school, because I wanted to do genetic engineering. I had no clue what genetic engineering was about, but there was something about genes and unlocking secrets of nature and of human health and disease, and I thought it was really cool. And I told my mom that I wanted to be a genetic engineer. And I was told, okay, if that's what you want to do, why don't you do a technical high school? So, around the time that I would be in the equivalent of year 10 in Brazil, your year, I went to this school, and there I stayed until I finished what would be the equivalent of A-levels when I was 18. And I was, by then, a biotechnologist, and I started working in a research lab in a university that was the same university where I started my undergrad degree in pharmacology. So if you see, this is me, my graduation day with my friends. Do you see many black people here? Not many, is it? Because of the reasons I told you before. The cool thing about science is that people think, oh, the science is so boring because they are going to get into a lab and they are going to spend their whole lives doing exactly the same thing. I can reassure you that it's not the case. I traveled to so many places that I would never go only for tourism. I met some fascinating people, and I had so many research interests throughout my life. So I started my life working with this bug. The posh name is Hodgkin's prolixus. It is a bug that transmits the Chagas disease. That is a global south disease. You don't have it here in Europe, but it's very, very devastating and enlarges people's hearts because this insect is the vector of this protozoan, you might remember from your lessons, that causes this disease. Then I started to work with rats. And I'm not proud of this time of my life. I'm quite embarrassed. But it was for science. It needed to be done. And today there is a lot of work being done to replace animals in the lab by other means, using cells, isolated cells or cell culture to do what in the old days you could only do with rats. Then I started to work with human blood cells, and this cell here with this nucleus with, what do we keep in the nucleus, by the way? Does anyone remember? The DNA, exactly. So you see that the nucleus of this cell is a very funky one, the 3 lobules. The name is neutrophil, and neutrophil is the kamikaze of our immune system. So we are here sat down, relaxed, chilled, and millions of neutrophils are taking care of us, killing bacteria, fungi, pathogens that are trying to attack our body. And then I found really cool things in neutrophils, and then I said, oh, can I see that in other kinds of cells? So I migrated to work, not migrated, but I started to work as well with cells of the blood vessels. And then after that, can I see what's happening in other kinds of cells, in different kinds of cells? So I started to work with epithelial cells in our guts. Actually, when I say I started to work, it's not fair, because I started to have students, PhD students, that were helping me to understand these processes. And I also worked in the same, I had some students working with me to understand the same processes in cancer, in melanoma, which is a form of skin cancer. The cool stuff of doing all this work, and people thought it was a bit clever, is that I got some prizes, and one of them is the L'Oreal Prize for Women in Science. That is a really cool thing, not because of the money to do research and all that, but because you become a bit like Miss Universe for 3 years. They take care of you, and they take you to nice receptions, and they give you hampers full of L'Oreal products. There was only one problem. Only half of the hampers would work for me, because I'm a black woman. They would send things for straight hair and fair skin. But it's okay, it's still a result. I would use half of it. The other half, I would give as gifts. So this time of the year, I would be sorted. I would have gifts for everyone. And the party and speeches, and he's my daughter. I had my daughter when I was finishing my undergrad. Here my family, my supervisor, and here a bigger photo of them. It was really, really cool, very, very posh party. As you can see here, loads of Prosecco or champagne. I don't remember, probably Prosecco, there was too much. But the thing is, that's the other face. Do you know what misogyny means? Yeah? So people that know what misogyny means, what does it mean? Please? Okay. Yes, it's being nasty to women, a hatred against women. And misogyny is everywhere in science as well, or in society, and affects scientists as well. It's not like because you're a scientist, you're protected from misogyny. Pretty much the opposite. And, I was there, starting my scientific career, my research group, and all that the media could talk about is that how I was once confused, and they thought that I was a samba dancer. So they objectifying someone because they are a woman. By the way, I never had this body. I would be very, very happy. That was not the part that I was uncomfortable with. The part I was uncomfortable with is that nobody was talking about my research, but because I was a black woman, I could only be a samba dancer. And then I came to this country because I went to the Brazilian Ministry of Health. I was leading a unit there, and there was the chance to do a sabbatical here in UK. So I came to spend 1 year. Here I am 10 years later. So it's your fault that I'm here, so you need to listen to me speaking. And during this time, I developed in this very, very great research team novel ways of seeing how medicines work. So you can do that in humans, very dangerous, in animals, very cruel, as we discussed before, or you can use cells that, where you can measure how different molecules that can become medicines are acting. And so that's what I developed this. And what I really like is that it's very colorful and pretty. That's the cool thing. But then from these data, we can derive and use a lot of maths to come up with these curves. Another question for this beautiful audience. Why do we need more of us? Of all of us. Not some of us, but all of us. No idea why? Yes. Representation. But representation is just because it's a nice and fair thing to do. Do you think that there are implications when you only have one kind of person think about a problem? There are some, isn't it? They are always saying, it's not because they are bad, it's just because they only have one perspective. They only have one set of experiences. So we need all of us, yes? Pardon? Because we are all scientists as well. And we are all scientists distributed across the whole population, and as many of us we can get together to think about the big problems that we've got. Which is the biggest problem that we are talking about a lot lately? Climate change. Imagine someone that lives in Lapland. If, the only people that could talk about climate change were people living in Lapland. They would have a very different perspective from the people that live in those tiny islands in the Pacific, isn't it? But some people, that's good. This year, the winter was not too bad. But then they start to realize that the fish that they used to fish, they are not there anymore, and all that. So we need everyone thinking together, because when we see just a little part of the problem, we end up creating bigger problems for the other people that are not in that space. And there is this article that's becoming old now from The Guardian, and then your teacher's going to say, oh, another leftist here. That was about this book called The Invisible Woman. Can you think of something that we use a lot today that was thought about, that did not consider women. That is so beautiful. I'm so proud. I'm almost crying, and it's genuine. Because my stepdaughter, she's got autism. And it was only diagnosed because it was a more severe form. But many of the problems that she's 25 now, so many of the problems that she had throughout life was not correctly diagnosed because what you said. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think that you deserve, let's give me time to compose myself. Anything else that was developed thinking only about, or not thinking about women? Okay, oh yes. Yes, yeah. That's another thing. And that's the history of our lives, isn't it? The oppression. Indeed, indeed. So we go into the social sciences, it's still sciences, I insist. Very, very good. Do you know something that everybody here used sometime today that was not developed thinking about us? Safety belts. It's better than dying. Don't stop using it. But if a woman had developed the safety belt, it would never be the way it is, because it's not proper for our anatomy. Did anyone here watch Loki, the Disney thing? Yeah? So who watched Loki? There was the female Loki, sister himself, isn't it? There was this lady, the blonde one, and she was breastfeeding when she was filming Loki. That is a Marvel thing. And the lady that designed the costume, she did in a way, because it's very Marvel-like, that she could easily breastfeed or pump out milk while with the whole shebang of the costume. So you see, a man would never do that. Not because men are not great, and we've got some wonderful examples in the room of wonderful men committed to your education, but because they don't go through that experience. And if we think that things have been designed throughout history by Caucasian, cis men in Europe and North America, we see that the world needs to adapt to what was designed by less than 10% of the world population. Do you know who this guy is in this photo? So yes, please. Exactly, Bezos. And what did he do, sir? He went to the edge of space just to see how it is. Just to see how it is, wasn't it? He went up there, took some time there with his, yeah. So that's the kind of, there is a lot of technology, a lot of science that goes into it. I'm sure that, this science, this technology that involves huge amount of money can be used for the common good. But in this specific case, and you can see that he's having a blast, because he's too subtle with this big laugh. He needs to put a hat as well. And then people around him, awkwardly laughing with him. Billions of dollars invested in this vanity project, but we don't have a cure to malaria. What is invested every year for malaria is a fraction of what Bezos invested to see the blue dot from afar. Another thing that, I want that for everyone here in this room, being a scientist or not, I hope it is a matter of choice for you. And I think that this event that is beautifully organized and your teachers and parents committed to your education, they are really, really invested in it. But we know that it's not only choice. There are other things playing a role. And I use my daughter as an example, as someone that can choose have the tools to choose, just like I had the tools to choose. So here's my daughter, just to upset me, she decided to do philosophy. Nothing against philosophy. Lovely subject. Very clever people. But come on, I'm a pharmacologist, should carry on with the tradition. And she did great. And I learned so much because I learned during her degree. She graduated in July. And here she is. She took a photo close to this big plaque. For Sir Arthur Lewis, that was the first UK black professor. That was a professor in her department in Manchester. But then I told her, it will come to haunt you. She finished her degree in philosophy. And because she thinks she can, and she can indeed, she came back home, yes, to Nottingham. She's now doing her MRAS, a researcher master's, in biosciences in Nottingham. And I think I want everyone to have this liberty, this freedom, to say, that's what I want to do now, that's what I want to do next. If she had a family that would be a bit more, oh no, you decide what you want to do, you need to carry on doing what you're doing, or why you're going to do a master's, we had your chance, or more importantly, and that's the big thing, because she couldn't afford to think about these choices, because she needs to guarantee her survival, it wouldn't be a choice for her. It would be an imposition, continue or not continue in academia, in a very, very different subject area. And she's so annoying that she works for BBC as well. She's detestable. And I came across one of the brightest people, not woman, not young woman, one of the brightest people I've ever met. Her name is Tomi Akinbadi. She was my student at the University of Nottingham. She graduated with a first in neuroscience. She came from a family that nobody had gone to university before. Her parents are immigrants. I am an immigrant, by the way, as you all know. But without connections, she got into Nottingham, that is a research-intensive university, as we call here in UK. Graduated with a first-class degree. Took 3 years for Tommy to get a PhD studentship. She is in the very top of what we expect. And she tried everywhere, and she didn't get it. Then she finally got in Cambridge. But things are changing. If you listen to the news at 10, news at 6, not 10, you should be in bed. Or if you listen to your parents moaning about politics and all that, and a sneak peek in the BBC website, things are changing. We are starting to have these conversations. And she got a position in this climate. But she's amazing. Why did it take so long for her to get this? And during this time, she was working as working, selling hot dogs. She worked in a hotel during the night. She worked for the NHS as not as a proper scientist that she is, but just taking paper from one place to the other, just to be close to the scientific environment. How cruel is this? And what kind of society that allows these things to happen? And she is one of the people that motivated me to create a scientific initiation program at the University of Nottingham. Unfortunately, in the UK, I think, and then the teachers in the room can tell me, it might be illegal to take people your age to the lab to play with liquid nitrogen. I can't say if I have done it or not with my daughter's friends, but I don't think we can create a program at this age, and I think it would be amazing because you're all very, very wonderful people and talented. But what we do is to get people as early as we can, when they get into university, to have this scientific initiation and join a research lab and learn, and just say, that's not what I want to do. But at least they had the experience. So I'm approaching the end. You've been very, very patient and kind. The take-home message that I want to, when you go in the bus that brought you here, and then you go home, and we start using TikTok, is dare to be exceptional, because you are, all of you here, you are exceptional individuals. You are amazing people. You've got untapped power and inner resources. Don't let anything get in the way. And sometimes circumstances get in the way. So go and seek help. And I think that the best form of help is for all of us to unite. There is social media, there is Instagram. There are many, many amazing people, influencers in the science space, of every kind of science. People that have 30 followers, people with 30,000 followers, that are there to signpost, to have a chat. And I offer myself, I'm not on Instagram because I can't use it. I'm there, but I don't know what happens. My daughter sometimes does things for me called, what is it, reels and stories? TikTok, there'll be dragons. I don't go there too much. But I'm very, very happy, and there are so many very, very good people to have a chat, because what I see is that sometimes everything you need is a chat. That's all you need. You don't, just to revive the confidence, to strengthen, to exchange ideas. And there is this group here that I think they are very, very cool, called 500 Women Scientists. I think, if I'm not wrong, they started around the time that Trump won the elections in the US. I think so. It was, mid-2010s, just like it's ages ago. I think it was when, and it was a way of mobilizing women to defend the power of science. And now they became, they went through a soul searching, and it's not only about bringing women in science, but it's to fight the barriers that keep women away from science. And that's it, people. Thank you so, so much. Does anyone here know this word? Ubuntu. Ubuntu. I like the sound, Ubuntu. You know that people that speak Latin languages, we like vowels. There is a lack of vowels in English. So, Ubuntu. Ubuntu, I think it's a Zulu word, but it's also an African philosophy. And the meaning is, I am because you are. So your success, your happiness is my happiness. And that's the word that I want to share with you, closing this talk, Ubuntu. I am because you are. Thank you very much.